In this video, we're going to see one more example of creating a class when we're just given a console program. To start, let's take a look in the CashRegister program. So you can see in this program, doesn't this program use a class I've never seen before? On this first line, I'm declaring a new variable called register. And what type is register? It's a cash register. A cash register is a class that's not written, that we've never seen before. We're going to have to write it in a minute. What are some of the methods of the cash register class? Well, it looks like here I'm doing register.recordPurchase. Great. It looks like I have enter payment as a method, get change, and then reset. Now we're thinking of this cash register kind of like an old-timey cash register. You know, it's got the brass keys, you pull down the thing and it literally makes the cha-ching sound. So when I record purchase, that's like I'm checking out an individual item at the counter. When I enter a payment, that's like me putting $50 down on the counter. It looks like that $50 isn't going to be enough to cover it, so let's go ahead and change this to $500. Little overkill, but that's okay. Get change should actually give me how much change I get back when I put down $500 for this amount of purchasing. And what does register.reset do? It actually just resets all the money. So we've kind of voided that purchase that was just made. We're going to set everything back. All right, let's go ahead and make this class. I'm going to go new class. I have to call it cash register. And then like I've been doing before, I'm going to pop this out to its own window over here. All right, remember we always start by determining our method signatures. It looks like my method signature for the constructor is correct. Let's do the next one. Let's do record purchase. Since that's on a line by itself, that's going to be a void method. And it does look like this takes a parameter. What type should that parameter be? Doesn't it have to be a double? That's a number with a decimal. And let's just call this amount. Maybe cost would have been a little bit more specific. That's okay. Let's do public void enter payment. That also takes in a parameter. Let's do double amount. This is like the amount of cash that was put on the counter. It looks like this get change method is going to return a double. So let's do public double get change. And lastly, we have reset, which takes no parameters and also looks like it doesn't return anything. Public void reset. Okay, step 0 done. Let's move on to step 1. Step 1 is what/how many private instance variables do I need? I think I need to know a few things here. Don't I need to know how much cost I've racked up through my multiple purchases? So let's do this. Let's do private double cost. And I think I also need to know how much money has already been paid towards that cost. Now I did one enter payment here like this, but originally this was at $50. Couldn't I have done a $50 payment and then maybe register.enter payment for $100? You can see how I can kind of put down different bills and different payments, and I do need to keep track of how much money is there. So let's do private double money paid. And for now, I think that sounds pretty good. I might need to change that later, but remember, you can always come back to step 1. Notice how I didn't give these values up here, and that's because I give them values inside of the constructor. Why? Because the job of the constructor is to initialize the private instance variables. Before making a transaction, I shouldn't have any cost and I shouldn't have any money that I've paid. So let's set those both to 0. All right, when I record a purchase, what should change? the cost should go up by the amount that that thing cost. So let's do cost equals cost plus amount. And similar thing for the payment. If I put down another bill on the counter, the amount that I've paid should go up by that amount. So money paid equals money paid plus amount. And again, notice that I called both of these parameters the same thing, which is inherently a little bit confusing, but parameters live within the methods where they're declared. So this amount is referring to how much the thing that I just bought cost. This amount is referring to how much money is the bills I put on the counter to pay for it. So I just wanted to show you that you can name parameters the same thing in different methods, and that's totally fine. Okay, get change. This one's pretty straightforward. I think all I really need to do here is return the amount that I've paid minus the cost. Money paid, minus cost. Now let's do reset. What's reset going to do is it's going to set my money paid and my cost to both be 0. So let's do that. Money paid equals 0 and cost equals 0. Now I want you to take a close look at the method we just wrote and at the constructor. Aren't these actually exactly the same thing? So I want to show you one thing here. Instead of doing this up here, what if I did this? Now it looks a little uncomfortable because you're looking at this and you're kind of like, hey, the job of the constructor is to initialize the private instance variables, and it doesn't actually look like I'm doing that just by looking at the constructor. But if you actually look at what reset does, doesn't it give values to both of your private instance variables? So this is actually initializing the private instance variables. You might argue that it's not the most readable thing in the world, but you totally are allowed to call methods that you wrote in another method in the class or even in the constructor. So I think you can make the argument either way for is this better or is the way that we had it before better, but I'm going to leave mine like this. Now let's do one more thing to this. Let's say I wanted to automatically reset the machine once I get change. The idea being if I'm getting change, it's kind of the end of a transaction, so I should reset it all after that. You would think that you could just do this. But you'll notice actually if I click off of this, you're not allowed to. In fact, it gets mad at me. And if I hover over this, it actually says that this is an unreachable statement. And this is actually a new thing that I have to teach you right now. Here's why it says that. This is a new thing that we haven't learned about returning. When I have the word return in a method, that actually does two things. One is that it gives back the value to whoever's using the method. That's what we've known return to do. The other thing that it does is it actually ends the method. You can think of when you put return in a method, it's like someone standing on stage doing a show and then they mic drop and they leave, right? They're not coming back on. That show's over. Same thing with a method. If I put return in there, no code that I put after the return is actually going to happen because again, return ends the method. So if I wanted to do this, I actually have to put reset before. Now this creates another issue. What does reset do? It sets the money that I've paid and the cost to 0. Won't this actually screw up this kind of math calculation that I'm doing here? So if I really want to reset and get the change, I actually have to do this. I need to save the change or that amount in a variable before I reset so that I can return it at the end. This is a pretty common thing that you might find yourself doing if you have a method that changes something about your instance or changes something about a value in the class and also returns. You might need to be careful about the order that you're doing those things in. So again, this was just another create a class example, but we've learned one new thing, which is that putting a return ends that piece of code. Just to double check that everything works, let's actually go ahead and run this. And you're going to have to compile. Oh gosh, it's still edit some other stuff, but there we go. CashRegister and CashRegister program are compiling. Let's get rid of the ones it's angry at. And I'm going to run the CashRegister program. And for mine, I paid $150. Looks like I have $41.25 left over from what I've paid.